Welcome, adventurer. Tonight, you are invited to journey back in time, far across oceans, to a quiet and orderly world nestled beneath snow-dusted mountains and cherry-blossomed skies, a place where silence was not emptiness, but structure, and where each footstep followed rules etched deeper than stone. This is the world of Edo, Japan, also known as the Tokugawa period, an era that lasted over 250 years, marked by peace, precision, and a delicate balance between beauty and suffering. As you listen, there's no need to stay fully awake. In fact, you may find that the deeper we wander into history, the more your mind drifts, softly, gently, like the mist that rolled through the rice paddies of old Japan. We'll begin with a day in the life of an average villager, where existence was defined by duty, labor, and seasonal rhythms. Then we'll meet a group of 47 warriors bound by a code sharper than steel. After that, we'll quietly peer behind the painted fans of a hidden world, a world that whispered more than it sang. And finally, we'll step into the polished halls of the ruling elite, where power and paranoia danced behind silken screens. So settle in, let the modern world fade, and let us begin. Imagine yourself waking to the sound of a wooden clapper echoing across the still air, not an alarm clock. No, this is the Hayoshigi, the traditional wooden night watch, signaling the early hour in a small farming village outside Edo. Your body is wrapped in a thin layer of cotton. The tatami mat beneath you is stiff with age. The air is cold, sharply so. There's no fire yet, and your breath clouds faintly as you sit up in the dim morning light. You are a commoner, a peasant in the Tokugawa period. You do not own your land. You owe rice to your daimyo, taxes to your magistrate, and loyalty to a society that has no intention of letting you rise. You do not complain. That, too, would break the order. Your days begin before the sun rises. You walk past the wooden gate of your home, bowing slightly as a reflex, even to the morning itself, it seems. The path to the fields is narrow and well-trodden. The earth is damp from yesterday's rain. You carry a hoe over your shoulder and a bamboo hat tied under your chin, its rim brushing your collar as you move. You spend the day bent under the weight of the work planting or harvesting rice, depending on the season. Your fingers are constantly sore. Your back has grown a subtle, constant ache. There is no idle chatter in the fields, only the soft chorus of effort, footfalls in mud, the swish of reeds, and the rhythmic chop of blades. The food is simple. Polished rice, if you're lucky, millet or barley, more often. Occasionally, you eat fermented vegetables, pickled daikon, or miso. Meat, rarely. Fish, if you live near water. You chew slowly, not because you savor it, but because you were taught not to waste even a single grain. In your village, the hierarchy is absolute. You know your place. Above you, the artisans, the merchants, the samurai. Their homes are larger, their robes cleaner, their voices often louder, though still polite, always polite. At sunset, you return home. If the tax collector is expected, there is tension in the air. He may ask to see your ledgers. He may ask for more. You bow deeply, always deeply. Resistance is not voiced. It is folded like origami carefully, hidden in the creases of your daily life. Your home has no glass windows, only shoshi screens. You hear the crickets chirping in the dark outside. Someone down the road is striking flint to light a lantern. A soft, flickering glow appears in the paper window of a neighbor's house. As the night settles in, you crouch by the aurora sunken, hearth for warmth. Smoke curls upward through a vented roof, and for a moment, you simply watch it drift. There is silence, a stillness that almost feels peaceful, until you remember that tomorrow begins the same way. Every day is the same rhythm, unchanging. The order is what keeps the chaos away. That is what you were taught. But still, you sometimes wonder, not aloud, never aloud, what it might be like to live beyond this village. To see Edo, to glimpse the ocean, or to wield a sword. Yet those are not your paths, not in this life. You close your eyes to the sound of frogs croaking in a nearby paddy. Your body is tired, your world is small, and in that smallness, you find a kind of quiet resignation. This was the rhythm of their lives. This was Edo, Japan. Imagine a world where honor outweighs survival, where the path of a warrior does not end with battle, but with ritual, where silence can be sharper than a blade. This is the story of the 47 Ronin, a tale not of loud heroism, but of quiet persistence. It begins in the polished halls of Edo Castle, beneath the watchful eye of the Tokugawa shogunate, where order and reputation were guarded with the same intensity as a sword. Our story centers on Asano Naganori, a young daimyo, a feudal lord of the Ako domain. He was honorable, dutiful, and, by some accounts, perhaps too earnest for courtly life. The year was 1701, and Asano had been called to the shogun's palace to fulfill ceremonial duties. Under the guidance of a powerful and seasoned court official, Yoshinaka Kira, Kira was influential and difficult. He was said to expect lavish gifts in exchange for his instruction, a custom of the court that some, like Asano, may have found distasteful. Whether it was pride, naivety, or simply an unwillingness to bend, Asano did not offer the expected bribes. The relationship between the two men quickly soured. Humiliations followed, some whispered, others public, and then, in a moment as sharp and fleeting as a falling blossom, Asano snapped. He drew his blade within the very walls of Edo Castle and struck at Kira. He did not kill him, but the act alone was unforgivable. For drawing a weapon inside the shogun's palace, Asano was ordered to take his own life. There was no trial, no appeal, just the solemn, chilling silence of seppuku, the ritual suicide of the samurai. And just like that, 47 of his most loyal retainers were left masterless. They became Ronin, wavemen. Ronin were samurai without a lord, drifting without a master. In many ways, they were considered disgraced. But these 47 men did not drift. They waited. They disbanded, scattered into the shadows of the city, took up humble jobs builders, monks, merchants. They watched, quietly, for over a year. And when the world had stopped watching them, they struck under the cover of night. On a snow-laden evening in December 1702, they surrounded Kira's residence in Edo. Silent, coordinated, precise. They found him hiding in an outbuilding, and after a brief search, they killed him. Not in a frenzy, but in calm, disciplined justice. They then marched to Asano's grave in Sangakuji Temple. There, they laid Kira's severed head before their master's resting place and waited. The law was clear. No matter the honor or motive, they had committed murder. But even the shogunate struggled with how to proceed. The people of Edo were moved by their loyalty. The court was divided, and after weeks of deliberation, a verdict was issued, not death by execution, but by ritual. Each of the 47 men, dressed in white robes, took their lives by seppuku, one by one, in silence, with honor. The act stunned the nation. Even in a society that revered order, this display of loyalty, executed not in anger but with stillness, left an imprint. The temple where they were buried became a place of pilgrimage, and in time, their story was retold again and again. In kabuki plays, in woodblock prints, in whispered tales beneath paper lanterns. It was not just about vengeance. It was about duty, about self-discipline. about the silence between two beats of a drum. The 47 ronin became more than men. They became symbols of what it meant to hold one's honor above one's life, of what it meant to wait in patience and act with calm. Their story is not thrilling in a modern sense. It does not race. It walks slowly, each step echoing with meaning. As you lie there now, listening, drifting, you might imagine snow falling gently on tiled rooftops, a group of figures moving through the night, quiet and determined. No words spoken, no eyes turned aside, only the rhythm of their lives, bound not by revenge, but by loyalty, carried all the way to the end. Imagine a narrow alley lit by dim lanterns, their glow softened by the paper that encloses them. The air is quiet, save for the faint sounds of a shamisen, its notes rising gently through the evening mist. You're in the Hanamachi, the flower town, a district not marked on most maps, but deeply woven into the cultural fabric of Edo-period Japan. This is the domain of the geisha. But what is a geisha, really? In the popular imagination, often misunderstood, neither courtesans nor concubines, not servants nor wives. They were artists of atmosphere. Geisha means person of the arts, and their role was precise, rehearsed, and often misunderstood even in their own time. Let us walk through a typical evening, not as a guest, but as an observer. The rhythm of this world is slower, quieter. Each movement means something. Every smile, every gesture is part of a centuries-old performance. Behind closed sliding doors, preparations begin in silence. The room is lit with soft candlelight. The geisha's face is painted white, not to conceal, but to reflect the low light in which she'll be seen. Red and black accents define her features. Her kimono is a layered story, patterns chosen not just for beauty, but for symbolism. Pine branches for perseverance, cranes for long life. Her hair is not simply styled, it is sculpted, held in place with kanzashi, ornamental pins, each one a clue to the season or occasion. She has trained for years, not just in the visual arts, but in the unspoken ones. Conversation, listening, timing. She knows when to speak, when to laugh, and when to simply let silence stretch like a silk ribbon. In the ochaya, or tea house, guests arrive. They do not expect excitement. They expect calm delight. The geisha enters with a bow. There is no fanfare, only presence. She pours sake with 2 hands, turning the label away from herself. She plays the shamisen, her fingers gliding across the strings with the ease of endless practice. She dances, not with leaps, but with careful, controlled gestures, each one a brushstroke in the air. And she listens to the stories of tired merchants, to the subtle boasting of bureaucrats, to the laughter of men who have spent all day being rigid and formal, and now, in this room, wish only to feel seen. But her own stories, she keeps them. Becoming a geisha is not a simple path. A young girl, often called a mako if in training, would begin as an attendant. She would watch, serve, study, 4 years, learning not just the arts, but how to read the room, how to anticipate desire without asking, how to maintain grace under scrutiny. There were no shortcuts, no improvisations, only repetition, precision, the same dances, the same songs, the same rules. In many ways, the life of a geisha was one of controlled elegance, of beauty as discipline. Behind the silks and music was a world of routines, appointments, patrons, contracts, and reputations that could be broken by the smallest misstep. There was camaraderie, yes, but also rivalry. A geisha's success was measured not by loud applause, but by subtle cues. A guest returning, a patron requesting her by name, a nod from a senior in the house. And when the night ends, she walks home in silence, her sandals clicking gently on the stone path. She removes her makeup with care, unwinding the mask layer by layer. Her room is small, her hours are late, and tomorrow, it begins again. In a world defined by rules, the geisha's power lay in grace under structure. A kind of quiet rebellion through beauty, a life of poetry lived in motion. So as you rest now, listening, picture the folding fans opening like quiet blossoms, the hush of a shamisen string, the gentle laughter of a guest, and the careful smile that answers it. Another performance, finished another night, falling softly like petals to the floor. Imagine a still morning atop a gently sloping hill. In the distance, the city of Edo stirs, its rivers glimmer, its merchant streets stretch with purpose. But here, behind Hylacart walls, the world is different. Quieter, polished, perfected. You are within the outer ring of Edo Castle, the seat of the Tokugawa shogunate. And if the peasant's world ran on rice and repetition, the shogun's world ran on ritual and rank. This was not a world of spontaneity, not even for the most powerful man in the land. The shogun, the military ruler of Japan, lived a life defined by ceremony. His every movement, from the way he held his fan to the precise angle of his seated posture, was scripted by centuries of inherited protocol. Servants glided through the polished wooden halls on silent feet, their footsteps soft by straw sandals. Doors slid open with a practiced whisper. Every object in the shogun's room had a purpose. Every visitor, a specific position to kneel. To enter his presence was not a conversation, it was a performance. But the shogun was not alone in his silence. Around him, a vast machine of government and guardianship spun with incredible coordination. Daimyo, the feudal lords, were required to follow a system called Sankenkatai, or alternate attendance. Each lord was obligated to travel to Edo and reside there for months at a time, bringing with him a lavish entourage of samurai, wives, and retainers. It was both a privilege and a leash. By keeping the families of the lords in Edo, the shogunate ensured loyalty. No rebellion could be staged far away without risking one's own kin. This system also fed Edo's economy and population, filling the city with opulence and control all at once. Within the castle, the inner chambers, the joku, were reserved for the women of the court. Wives, concubines, and lady attendants lived in quiet competition. Access to the shogun was limited. Political alliances were often brokered not in war rooms, but through a favored glance or a whispered word from behind a silk curtain. The politics were intricate, subtle, and steeped in layers of hierarchy that dictated even the seating order at a tea ceremony. But even the shogun was not above fear. Betrayal did not come loudly. It arrived in unsigned notes, in shifts of power behind folding screens, in the reshuffling of ministers, or the sudden retirement of a high-ranking official. Assassinations were rare, but paranoia, constant. Guards were everywhere. Food was tested. Movements were watched. Trust was always partial and rarely spoken aloud. And yet, amidst all this, there was also luxury. The finest silks, imported perfumes. Poets and painters summoned to perform in hushed chambers, gold-leaf folding screens, depicting cranes in flight and pine trees bowed by snow. Gardens of still water, raked gravel, and seasonal blossoms. The beauty was not just indulgent, it was a symbol of power, a display of control, and yet, here, art and authority intertwined. When the shogun appeared in public, rare as that might be, it was with a slow, deliberate procession, Hundreds of retainers, footmen in matching robes, banners flapping gently in the wind. The streets would go silent. Citizens would kneel, not out of love, necessarily, but from generations of conditioning. To see the shogun was to see the mountain beneath which all else bowed. Yet behind the grandeur, he was a man, often isolated, frequently surrounded, yet emotionally distant. His days were filled not with bold decisions, but with maintaining balance, of power, of loyalty, of appearances. And when he slept, he did so in rooms guarded from all sides, wrapped in traditions that were centuries old. Imagine that silence, the kind that comes not from peace, but from too much attention, the burden of perfection, the weight of being watched. This was not the chaos of medieval Europe. This was not the decadence of Versailles. This was a still, slow-burning structure, held together by rice, ritual, and rigid roles. It lasted. For over 2.5 centuries, the Tokugawa shogunate presided over a relatively peaceful Japan, not through kindness, not through cruelty, but through structure. And in the world of Edo, structure was everything. As we bring our journey through Edo, Japan to a close, allow yourself to feel the stillness we've wandered through. We began in the rice paddies, where your days were shaped not by clocks, but by the weight of the earth and the expectations of others. The rhythm of labor, the creak of bamboo, the scent of damp straw. A life not marked by ambition, but by endurance. Then we followed the path of warriors, men who served a code so deeply, it led them to wait in silence for over a year. The 47 Ronin didn't rage. They didn't plead. They acted with quiet resolve, then faded into ritual, into legend, into silence again. We stepped softly into the hidden world of the geisha, where performance was a lifestyle and every motion carried meaning. Beauty here was not loud. It was practiced. It was learned. It was offered like tea, quietly, gracefully, never rushed. And finally, we glimpsed the inner sanctum of power, the shogun's domain, where even the most powerful man followed rules older than himself, where trust was rare and silence was the truest currency. Through it all, what endures is the rhythm of ordered lives, of practiced restraint, of balance, not always fair, but always deliberate. Edo, Japan was a world where beauty was structure, and structure was survival. And now, as you lie still, perhaps your eyes growing heavy, you may feel a thread of that rhythm within yourself. The slow, unhurried breath, the way the night wraps around you like a cotton kimono, the soft certainty that here, in this moment, everything is exactly where it is meant to be. You do not need to remember every name, every date, every ritual, only the feeling, the calm, the quiet, the steady, flowing rhythm to reach you here, now. Thank you for joining me tonight. Rest well, and when you wake, know that the world will still be waiting, with all its beauty, its order, and its unexpected wonder. Until next time, good night.